45 minutes. 3 weeks ago I did this in 45 minutes, so I had to rush through some of them. So I'm gonna try to not rush so I can get everything, because the meaty stuff is like halfway through and I want you to see the videos. But you know, when it comes to learning new information, you know, how many of you here are parents? Okay, most of you. So, you know, when you teach kids something, you have to make it fun. And this is the idea I got in 2015 when I started working at Starfest conventions for Trekkies and Star Wars fans and, you know, the fandom. That how I was able to get the message to them about what's happening in ufology was through film and TV. And then I did research on some of the scripts, okay, that these were soft disclosures. So that's where I'm going with some of this. And my book series is called Who's Who in the Cosmic Zoo, which is 5 books at the moment, and I have a 6th one coming next year. And it's basically connecting dots to the past, the present, and the future through the prophecies. So, you know, are you connecting dots or are you collecting dots? Because sometimes people just collect a lot of information and it doesn't make any sense. But when you connect dots, you can have a full picture and get understanding, which has been my journey, is to try to understand what's going on and connect it. So that's my attempt today. So you know, when you connect dots, you get a little like peppy over here. And you go here, and you go there, and you go there, until you finally see the big picture. So bear with me, because you might think I'm jumping around, but it'll all come together at the end. Okay? And that's what's happening here, is that there's a paradigm shift. And I always ask everyone before I start my spiels for your temporary suspension of unbelief. And even here at a UFO Congress, there are still skeptics, okay? And sometimes seeing is believing, and sometimes connecting dots and having understanding is believing. But I'm just going to ask you to just, you know, hold off, and afterwards you can ask all the questions you want. And my book series proves it in much more detail what I'm going to present today. So thank you. And, you know, we are in the middle of a paradigm shift. And a lot of times when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So hopefully you'll come away from this today with a different perspective. Okay.
Wouldn't put it past this government that a cosmic Watergate has been underway for the last, 25 years. And at the same time, I don't think it's, I think as we're growing up, or from the government's point of view, I think we've been adults for hundreds of years, but from the government's point of view, we're still growing up, and eventually they might want to tell us something about what they've discovered over the decades.
Well, and you heard it from the horse's mouth, Spielberg himself. And he was obviously, the creator, the filmmaker of E.T., Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And these are very relevant films in our culture in the 70s. Some things are just hiding in plain sight, and right there in TV and film. So I can tell you, and I have the evidence to back it up in my book series, that E.T., for instance, was based on a real alien that was captured by the government, which they called EB, Extraterrestrial Biological Entity. And, Spielberg got it, made it fun for kids. This was at a time when it was about 20, 25 years after President Eisenhower signed an agreement with the Greys, so it was the agenda of the Majestic 12, who were the admirals in charge of the Navy, in charge of all of the information and the alien presence. And they knew that they weren't going to be able to cover everything up because there were going to be leaks. So they masterminded that it's better to just release the information drip by drip and put it into unofficial sources, okay, which were television and film. So Spielberg got a hold of information and a couple of scripts, so, you know, basically with the extraterrestrial biological, they turned it into E.T. They took the black eyes from the gray, well, he was really like brown. In my book, I write G-R-A-Y to differentiate the species from the color gray, G-R-E-Y, because there's 35 different types of grays and they come in all different colors, brown, white, even like a shiny black, navy color. I mean, so it's not all about the color, it's about the species, they're clones, they're hybrids. So anyway, the classic buggy-eyed, black-eyed, they took that out, put the blue eyes in, and you got this friendly little ET. And this was at a time when they were trying to, you know, introduce this to the public to kind of make it friendly. And this was before there was a skirmish, which I'm going to get to. Here you see Bob Lazar. He's pretty, who doesn't know who Bob Lazar is here? Nobody. Good. This is, you know, talks preaching to the choir here. But, you know, he worked on an alien ship, reverse technology. And, you know, this is coming out now. I mean, there's, you know, the famous Tic Tac video, which you see all over the news. So I took this in Westminster. I live in Westminster, Colorado. I took this in January, and I saw this with my own eyes, okay? So this is not a lens flare or a camera anomaly. This is what I saw, and that's what happened. So I'm going to, you know, my book, The Heavens, is all about Nibiru, Planet X, and you know, this is very real. And I'm going to connect this dot for everyone today to UFO disclosure and the alien presence. So let's start with, you know, Star Trek and Star Wars. Well, you know, Star Trek came out in the 1960s, and it started out to be one thing and ended up to be something quite different. But I worked with many of the Star Trek actors and even one of the writers, okay, the science writer. And the science writer was always given the scripts to tighten it up, to make it credible science. Even though it was future science, it still had to follow, you know, the logic of science. So one of the things that, sorry, let me just finish this. So one of the things that we saw in Star Trek was the technology and how they were showcasing all this technology, okay? And where did they get it? Did somebody just think of it themselves? Was it imagination? And I'll show you that it wasn't. Close Encounters of the Third Kind was actually based on a documentary. Entertaining, but those are the facts. Jacques Vallée, who here hasn't heard of Jacques Vallée? Good, of course. No, really? Okay, so he, huge ufologist, he actually worked, you know, within this whole realm, and this was originally his diary, his documentary. In fact, Spielberg featured him as a cameo. He had a cameo in Close, so it's very sort of close, but the story is based on truth, okay? So, you know, our culture has, every decade we've had these TV shows that showcase aliens. And this is just a handful of them. I'm sure there's more, but these were my favorites, so I put them up there. But who's watching Resident Alien? Yeah, okay. So after you see this, you're going to want to watch it if you haven't. And they're in between seasons now, so you have time to binge watch and catch up. But, you know, all of these have one thing in common, besides the alien coming to Earth. And that is, the alien is either trying to learn how to be human or how to get along with humans. Okay? So I find that interesting. In Resident Alien, the first season, they depicted a talking octopus, which was played by this Canadian comedian, which was hilarious. But, and he's called number 42. These are the scenes, I mean, he ends up dying, but then the alien Harry ends up, he tells him to eat him with some Chardonnay. So they're using humor, okay, to bring this information forward, okay? And no coincidence here that the scientists have basically come out and said, you know, the octopus is an alien species on Earth, okay? And then no coincidence that 2-3 years ago, my Octopus the Teacher won the Academy Award for the best documentary. Just connecting a few dots there.
I need to talk to you.
I like Halloween. I think it is funny that humans like decorating with other dead humans. I am pretending that this gentleman worked at a grocery store before he was murdered.
Cool. Look, I need more information on this alien race that you said is trying to take over the Earth. You know, I was on the internet the other day, and there's something called insectoids. Like a big, giant bug person alien thing. What the hell? I do not want to be squashed by a big bug person.
The internet is wrong.
Oh. Okay. Good.
No, the insectoids, they do not squash. They like to eat other beings while they are still alive and struggling.
You're not helping.
Patience tourism commercial. This little guy? Huh?
Oh my!
There it is.
The mayor can transmogrify matter. He must be part Anunnaki. Maybe Mayor Snowflake lives.
In just 2 clips, you got a taste of Resident Alien. In Resident Alien, he goes over the Anunnaki, the insectoids, the Greys, the lizards, the reptilians, the draconians. I mean, like, I almost feel like he read my first book, because that's what's in here. And the truth is stranger than fiction. So Resident Alien is a very big, soft disclosure TV series that's based on a murder mystery, docudrama, you know, comedy, drama, and it's very rich with, you know, characters. It takes place in a fictitious town a mountain town called Patience, Colorado. And anyone who's been to a mountain town in Colorado knows that you need patience because life is slow. So it's very funny. It's you know, takes place. There's lots of different you know, with alien abduction, and they see a big ship, and of course Harry, played by Alan Tudyk, he's so comedic, but he plays the alien, and he takes over a human body. So he's saying, oh, it must be part Anunnaki. So he's talking, so who are the Anunnaki? Well, I detail it in great detail in 2 of my books, 3 of my books actually, because according to the Sumerian tablets, they are coming back to this planet when Nibiru passes. So the Anunnaki are mentioned in the Hebrew Bible. I studied with Zecharia Sitchin. I met him in 1995, and if it wasn't for Zecharia Sitchin, we wouldn't be calling it Nibiru. So that was what he pulled from the Sumerian tablets. And you know, basically, the Hebrew Bible was based on the Sumerian. So, you know, a little bit about the history. The Israelites, Jews were held captive in Babylon for 70 years, and they had to hear the Enuma Elish spoken every day. So they basically rewrote it into Genesis. So it's in the book of Genesis. So I connect those dots in my book series because of language and linguistic differences. And one of the big things in my second book, Who is God, is the cast. I reveal the cast of characters of gods in the Old Testament that is not seen in the English Bible. because it was completely lost in translation. So every time the names of these gods appear in the Hebrew Bible, they were translated to the words Lord and God in the English Bible. So when people are reading the English Bible, they think it's all the same being. And, that's why, they're confused, there's a lot of contradictions, how could God say this and then do the opposite? Well, I break all that stuff down because it's not the same God, okay? So when we have that, we've become like a species with amnesia because they've taken away our history and they've manipulated it and they've changed it so many times. So this is what my second book is about, is to pull the names out. And Hebrew is a very specific language. Like it's either singular, plural, masculine, or feminine. Very similar to the Latin languages, like Spanish. So when we see the word Elohim, for instance, in Hebrew, that literally translates to gods with an S, okay? But every time it shows up, whoever ended up editing and penning the Bible canon in English has it as a singular. So it's very confusing when people are trying to discern the stories and the history, because the Bible also has history, it's not just about religion. So I unpack that. And the Anunnaki were slave masters. Let's get straight to it, okay? They came to Earth to genetically manipulate the human race to serve them, okay? So one of the conclusions in my first book has to do with this misnomer that was running around after Sitchin's material came out that, the Anunnaki created us. Okay, well this is false, it's not true, because the history shows, and their own story shows, that the humans were on the earth when the Anunnaki arrived, because they used the earth women, and earth women were human. Okay, so they did not create humankind. What they did was they genetically downgraded and manipulated us. Okay, and this is evidenced in the book of Genesis. Now, the book of Genesis is a brief synopsis, okay, believe it or not, of the whole story that happened in the creation story, which you can find in the rejected Jewish texts called the first and second book of Adam and Eve. Okay, if only those two books were part of the Bible, we'd have a whole different paradigm here. But basically, it was a battle that went on over the earth and over the humans that the Elohim put on the earth. The Elohim said, let us, this is all in plurality, let us make man in our image according to our likeness. So this is evidenced in the Hebrew text. It was never changed in Hebrew. It was just mistranslated into English. Just so you know, if anybody wants to look these things up, it's still there. And so, all the religions of the world, and I connect these dots in my book series, are all waiting for their Messiah, for the Savior to come. And, the job, the role of the Messiah is to bring everybody together. And we know that the Anunnaki's motivation, and still is today, is very Machiavellian in nature, which is divide and conquer, because that's how they maintain power and control, is keeping us divided and dissension over all kinds of things. Racism, male, female, this country, this color, that color, whatever. But, we are of what I call the Eva Demeth race, coming from Adam and Eve. We are humans. We're not the only humans. Our DNA was created in the image and likeness of the Elohim gods, which were 12 strands of DNA. We have 2. However, our geneticists today will look at that and they'll call it junk DNA because they don't understand where it comes from. But it's just disabled, like how you disable things on a computer. But the Messiah, okay, it promises to restore all things, and that includes us, okay, back to what I call glory bodies or light bodies and that is to have all 12 strands operating, which is kind of like being a superhuman, which we see in movies like The Avengers and Superman, and you can use your imagination. So the Anunnaki didn't want that to happen, so they downgraded the DNA, and this is evidenced in the cuneiform. In my book series, I wrote 4 experiencers because I'm one, and it was my journey to figure out what happened because I had experiences with a potpourri of different types of beings, and not all positive. I was, a little traumatized. My story was featured on UFO Witness this past summer. If you look that up, episode 2 with Ben Hansen. So I'm not here to talk about my story today, but about my research. And I realized that there's so many different types of aliens here on Earth already. Some of them have been here for eons. I mean, we was like made to think that, oh, they're just visitors. No, they've been here all along. They've been interacting and hiding behind the scenes, and some of them actually live inside the Earth and inside planets in our solar system. So it started out with this. Some of you have come to my table and you saw this chart that I was showing. It started out with this chart because I had this, I was given this or consciousness in 1998 that what's happening is a war. It's a battle. It's a clash between 2 kingdoms on Earth. And, here, us Americans, we've kind of lost that consciousness of kingdoms when we broke away from the English monarchy. Well, I'm married to a Brit, so I can't forget about that, okay? But here in America, we're free of that monarchy, so we don't think that we're part of a kingdom or used to be part of a kingdom. But there's two very distinct, different kingdoms that have been operating on Earth. I mean, besides the national ones. And I kind of delineated it into the Reptilian Empire, the Draconians, Dracs, Satan's hierarchy. Now, the word Satan has a religious connotation to it, I realize that, but it's just a Hebrew word that means adversary and rebel. And in my books, I pluralize it because there's not one, there's a group of them, okay? And that's those guys over there. And then here is the Evademic race, which is us, we're part of that, but also the good extraterrestrials. So, the Bible story tells us that 1/3 of heaven's angels rebelled, 2/3 did not, okay? And those are the good ETs. So they are the ones that are trying to help us, okay? And some people call them angels or elders. And these are their star systems that they come and go. And also, with all cosmic drama, with all wars, there's always people in the middle. People who have one foot in each camp. Either they're trying to create peace, alliance, or they're spies. So that's the rest of the chart there, and you're welcome to come and look at it in more detail. So basically it's the real Game of Thrones. This is what we're dealing with here on Earth. Who here hasn't seen the Game of Thrones? Okay, well, you can binge watch it. It's on, yeah. But she basically is controlling the dragons. Okay, they bow to her, and there's all this drama around it. So my book is kind of an energy compendium. And a lot of them have been inside the Earth. And this is evidenced by our Earth cultures and our Earth religions and different tribal beliefs. And here we have, again, in TV and film, the blue beings, and there are blue beings in Earth, and because it has to do with more copper in the skin. It's scientific, where if you're living inside the Earth, you're not exposed to the sun. So we have Avatar, we have the X-Men, we have Farscape, and of course, the Hindu culture has blue-skinned beings. So this is not fantasy or made up. This is based on what really happened in the past and still happening now. We're also seeing these beings, okay, the whites, the tall blondes, the Nordics, they have a number of different names, and they seem to have inspired Hitler, you know, because they were called Aryans with this pure race, again, with the racism. So this is not of the evademic side, this is of the other side. Now, this man here passed away, Boyd Bushman. He had a very high security clearance, and right before he died on his deathbed, he shared a bunch of photos of aliens that they were interacting with here in America. So this is the big controversy about, you know, did God create aliens? I mean, you know, are they good and bad? I get in the middle of this all the time because, and it goes back and forth between Christians and New Agers, and you know what? The truth is always in the middle ground. You know, when you start broad brushing anybody and saying all aliens are demons, all aliens are light beings, you know, it's you get lost and you stop discerning the differences. And basically, you know, this controversy still, you know, is very relevant today. That's what my work is about, is to help people to discern and get away from this type of, you know, it's another form of bigotry, you know, all, and, you know, some, you know, we have to change the linguistics to some. Yes, some are definitely demonic. I mean, if you saw the film, Making Contact here, everybody see that? You missed a James Fox film? Okay, you'll have to catch it on the replay, but that was a classic devil, you know, with what he showed, what happened in Brazil, the Brazilian Roswell, with little horns on his head and big red eyes, and smelled like sulfur and ammonia, and the guy touched him, and he died of an infection, and I mean, it couldn't be more devilish and demonic. So yes, some aliens are definitely demonic, but not all, okay? And the same thing with, you know, New Agers who tend to believe that they're all light beings, they're all benevolent, and that can be a big trap of deception, because many of them have the ability to shapeshift, and as we see in a Resident Alien, I mean, he does it all the time, and that they can masquerade as light beings and angels and ascended masters and space brothers, and they're really, you know, pull off the mask and there are lizards underneath, okay? Who remembers the series V from the 1970s? Yes, very profound. Let's not forget the lesson in that one. So here we are in this present age of disclosure, and we are in it, and it's not done yet. Anyone here feel like they've been abducted? Yes. Are all about the genetics, okay? So what's happening is that women's eggs, ovum are being taken, men's sperm is being taken, both men and women, skin grafts are being taken, and what are they doing? They're creating hybrids, okay, with their agenda to replace us. So it is the ultimate replacement theology. Okay, and this has been going on for a very long time. I detail all of this with all kinds of references in my books, and there is stuff connected to the past because it's generational. It's bloodlines. These children, these hybrid children, are being raised on the ships, off planet and underground here on Earth, and they are going to be released at some point in the future. So we have, this is another piece that I offer in my book series, is about the inner Earth. So when you connect the dot here that we have, that the Earth is caverned out, and we know this from the history, and you know, whenever there were cataclysms and floods, they went underground, and some of them stayed. So here's another soft disclosure, Lord of the Rings. Who's not familiar with Lord of the Rings? Okay, So, well, it wasn't only just a book series, they made movies about it, but it's all about the inner earth, okay, and very detailed. Almost that J.R. Tolkien tapped into it, or was shown it in some way. I think it was prophetic, intuitive. But here, this was on the History Channel just this past year about the crystal city discovered under Antarctica. Okay, and there's a ton of information about that that you can find. That's Antarctica. And, you know, let's not forget Richard Byrd, 1947. Okay, he was ordered by the government to remain silent about it. Okay, he ended up in the North Pole accidentally, went inside the Earth, was helped by these beings that are inside the Earth because his plane broke down. They fixed his plane, they sent him back on his way, up the hole in the pole, and then the government sent him to Antarctica to go to the South Pole after that and gave him a whole army to support him. So this is all documented, okay? And, you know, our planet is kind of like a torus. You know, it's round, but it's got a hole at the top and a hole on the bottom. So we're in the middle of a pole shift, okay? 45 degrees, the North Magnetic Pole has shifted from the Canadian Arctic to Siberia. So, and this is, I'm going to connect the dots to why this is happening and why this is relevant. So we're seeing all these anomalies and energies going on. See, the natural hum of the Earth is 7.83 hertz. And we call that they measure it, what's called the Schumann frequency. Has anyone here not heard of the Schumann frequency yet? Okay, so good, because, and again, the Adam and Eve story, I mean, very relevant. But the Schumann frequency measures the Earth's energy, and it is off the charts lately. Okay, so, okay, now I'm gonna come back to that in a moment. I'm just gonna go here to the Star Trek, because it's all gonna be, remember I told you I'm connecting dots, so don't worry, it'll come together. But this is just another piece, okay? And this is a back history, little known back history about Star Trek, was Gene Roddenberry's relationship with the Navy admirals, okay, who came out of Nazi Germany, were overseeing the alien tech that they got from, you know, the spoils of war. You know, the allies, America and Russia, shared the spoils of war, which was the alien tech. Where did they do it? In Antarctica, because the Nazis had already started a base there in the early 30s, actually late 20s, early 30s, and they took over that base. And they, you know, that was a perfect place on Earth that no one would see, because no one is even allowed to go there now, unless you have special clearance and stuff. But Gene Roddenberry also sat in on a channeling session every week in Los Angeles, and by Phyllis Schlemmer. She's passed now. I got to sit in one of her sessions in the 1990s. Her book is The Only Planet of Choice, and she channeled a group of beings called the Council of Nine, the Nine. And that's inspired a lot of scripts, as well as the eventual Star Trek, the Council, the Deep Space Nine. So, which was produced after he died, but this was in the scripts. So, you know, here's another piece of technology that Star Trek introduced to us. We have that now, okay? Lockheed Martin has developed it, transporters. And who remembers the Jetsons? Okay, yeah, you're all from my generation. And look at what they were showing us when we were kids. You know, online classes, video calls, telemedicine. The past 2 years, this stuff was big. This is all people did, right? So, this was another soft disclosure put into a cartoon. And The Business Insider, had published that they had done the teleportation, if anybody wants to look it up. And then, of course, we have Guardians of the Galaxy, okay? Who hasn't seen Guardians of the Galaxy? Okay, well, some more catching up to do over the winter. And, no coincidence that the Space Force are now called Space Guardians. Like, which came first, the chicken or the egg, So, and we've got the physicist talking about the multiverse, which is what the Marvel universe has depicted in the Loki series. This was a short-term TV series. So we now have this, okay? And this was also showcased in the original Star Trek. And again, feel free to look this stuff up, physics/astronomy.org. You can get all the details. And I know this is very busy, and you're welcome to come to my table and read it, but this was published in Forbes magazine 2 years ago about all the tech that was once in Star Trek that now is our reality. Okay, so I say, is the truth stranger than fiction? Or were they feeding it to the scriptwriters to prepare the public for this time? And what else are we being prepared for? And I can't forget to give some credit to Lucille Ball, because if it wasn't for her, Star Trek wouldn't have happened. She was the producer, the money behind the scenes, because when it got the original series was rejected on NBC, and then she stepped in and made it happen. Yeah. Yeah. And here's another fun fact, Leonard Nimoy. He was raised Jewish. He's originally from the Ukraine, and he adopted this because this is what the ancient Israelite priests used to do when they said the Aaronic blessing over the congregation. They would do this, which is, to may the Lord bless you and keep you, may he have his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you and give you peace. And they always did that when they said it at the end of an assembly. So he adopted that, and that became the Vulcan greeting. So there's nothing new under the sun. We're seeing this evidence in stone carvings that are ancient. And I'm going to now take you on another little journey about the secret space program. Who here has not heard of the secret space program? Right, well, you're here in the UFO Congress, you should. So you know that this is real, okay? You know that some of the ships up there belong to us, and they've been hiding this for 70 years, 75 going on. And so it's real interesting, and I'll give you some time to read that. When President Trump was elected president, went to President Obama, and this was all over the news. Every single paper and news station reported on this, that's what they talked about, high-flying assets. And they weren't just talking about Air Force planes. Okay, so I'll let you connect some dots there. The presidents are briefed daily on what goes on, the inner Earth activities, holes in the pole, Antarctica, underground bases, Solar Warden, which is the Navy's term for the secret space program, which has now become Space Force, Moon-Mars bases, Nordic aliens, the blondes, the tall whites, who they're dealing with, who is helping them. So all of this is documented in great detail in my two books, book 1 and 2. So we're seeing this, these are photos, and they were done in different, black and white color to see more detail, taken from the International Space Station. Okay, so I want to give you a chance to just kind of get that shape in your mind. Okay, you see the shape of it? It's very long, it's very big. And now, look at this. this is a TV show called Avenue 5. Has anyone seen it here? Yeah, it's pretty new. Another comedy, it's a space drama, but it's, you know, it's very goofy, and but they are revealing a lot of this tech, which is takes place in a near future, where they actually take people on a ship to go on vacation in space, and so there's a lot of, you know, human drama that goes on, and so, I mean, the ship that they're showing in this is just like what we've been seeing outside the ISS. So, I do this whole thing on the presidents in my 5th book because they all had something to say about UFOs, but right here, only because when he was president, that was the official disclosure day. And that happened under his administration, December 18th, 2017, under Trump, okay? And he knows a lot more than what people give him credit for. And then, of course, let's not forget, Ronald Reagan started the Star Wars program in the 80s, which is the Strategic Defense Initiative, the SDI. No coincidence there that they dubbed it Star Wars. And this happened not too long ago. This is the former Israeli space security chief, Chaim Eshed, okay, who just came out on an interview and said, oh, no, the Galactic Federation, we're involved with the Galactic Federation, Trump knows about them, America and Israel are working with the Galactic Federation, but the Galactic Federation doesn't want us to tell the public yet about who they are and that they exist because they believe that the public isn't ready. And this guy is in his late 80s, so he's got nothing to lose, and he basically told this this main newspaper in Israel, you know, I have nothing to lose, but this is, and he wrote a book. Well, actually, a book was written about him, but he, you know, kind of laid it all out there. The Universe Beyond the Horizon, which is conversations with him, and he's talking about the Galactic Federation and America and Israel, and Trump knew of it. He said this before the end of Trump's term. This came out in 2020, May of 2020, November 2020. So, you know, I mean, these guys, there's way more going on than meets the eye here. And I'm not here to get political. This has nothing to do with American politics, but I'll let you connect some dots, okay? So this is one of my favorite sayings, you know, about half-truths, because sometimes people run with it, and, you know, be careful of which half you get a hold of, because things aren't always what they seem to be. Stargates, okay? So here, another true, like this was the movie, okay, from the 1990s, remember? And this actually was based on a reality, okay? These were artifacts that were found in the Middle East in the 1920s, just like the movie said. These are actual, the Egyptian Gazette, and you know, that picture all the way off to the far right, I took, by the way, in Colorado Springs. So Colorado Springs, Colorado has that Stargate fountain. And right across from it are two huge obelisks. And they light up at night. And that's a fountain. And then across the street from that, on this building, it basically says hiding in plain sight. Colorado Springs. Now, what else is in Colorado Springs?
Air Force Academy.
Yes?
NORAD.
NORAD, thank you. So, here's a backstory that was seen in local papers when this was happening in 2003. So, do you remember the weapons of mass destruction? Okay. Oh, sorry. The weapons of mass destruction, they went into Iraq to raid the Baghdad Museum in 2003. And then the media said, no, there were no weapons of mass destruction. But right after the initial raid, they came out with mission accomplished, you know, and it was all, and what they went in for was the Stargate. Now, I have in my book traced it that the Libyan president, Muammar Gaddafi, gave Saddam Hussein the Stargate as a gift, okay, back in the 90s, and it was in the Baghdad Museum. And where did they take it? They brought it to Colorado, to NORAD. Those were little known stories that were only in the local paper when all this was happening. So the mainstream media was putting out, oh, there are no weapons of mass destruction, nothing to see here, move along, folks. So this, you might have seen at my table in my banners, these were leaked photos from the Arctic Sea in 1971 that were taken by the Navy of USOs, underwater submerged objects, and they were coming and going inside the ocean. And some of you have come to my table and talked to me and asked me what got me into all of this. Well, I'll give you just a real brief. 1995, I was living on Indian Rocks Beach in Florida, Gulf of Mexico. We used to go to the beach every night to watch the sunset. And my husband went to work, I went to the beach, watched the sunsets. After the sun, it was a beautiful day. All the stars came out, not a cloud in the sky. We're all hanging out on the beach. All of a sudden, I start to hear swishing sounds. A lot of times, pods of dolphins would come very close to the shore, and that's what I thought it was at first. But it got louder, and it got bigger, and I thought, oh, a dolphin? That must be a whale. Whale, what is a whale doing here? Oh my God, it's a submarine. And I was just like gobsmacked, and then it turned out it was a football-sized, disc-shaped silver ship emerged out of the Gulf of Mexico, 100 yards away from me, okay, with the sea foam and the water swooshing, and it hovered for about a minute, and then shot up into the sky like in seconds, and I watched it, and it became as small as a star, and then I saw something open up like a portal, and it just went in, like created its own portal, and just disappeared. Okay. So that was, I had no idea. I was like, whoa, what am I seeing here? But that got me down the rabbit hole on all this stuff. April of 1995. And then I learned later that the local MUFON had received 350 calls that night of other people along the beach who had seen that ship from different angles. But there it was right in front of me. So this stuff is real. And isn't it interesting that that Disclosure Day, okay, and what's coming down from the DOD and the Pentagon is always showing you that tic-tac UFO, which also was coming and going inside the ocean. So there's a lot going on inside the Earth through the oceans. Okay, so here we are with what's happening around the sun, okay? So we know that the sun is not behaving like it's supposed to lately. The sun is perturbed. And if perturbed sounds like disturbed, it's because it is. And perturbations happen because other planetary celestial objects create plasma exchanges that make it a little uncomfortable. Okay, so the sun is going through a very intense cycle right now. Sunspots, coronal mass ejections, solar flares that are getting a little too intense. And that raises the Schumann frequency every time that happens. And it takes about 48 hours for a solar flare, coronal mass ejection, to reach the Earth. And sometimes it doesn't wave over the Earth. It can wait, like Venus took a hit for us 2 weeks ago, a real big one, an X one. But we had an X one. There's M class, C class, and X class. And then within them, they classify them as 1, 2, 3. And the X3 is like the worst. So it's one of our biggest fears that that a solar flare will wave over the Earth and pretty much knock out all of our technologies and our satellites. And why is this happening? So now I'm going to go into that. So by the way, if anybody's wondering, all these photos here that I'm showing come from the NASA SOHO coronagraph LASCO telescopes, and there's about 6 of them. And they are studying the sun in space, outside of the Earth's atmosphere. So we don't have lens flares, okay? It's focused. They look at it in all these different colors, okay? You can go to their website, it's public. They show, it's a 24/7 video loop of what's happening on the sun. So we're, watching the sun for solar flares and CMEs, and what are we seeing? We're seeing spaceships. We're seeing spaceships come around the sun. Now, that doesn't look like a comet to me, okay? Does anyone think that's, these are technology. This is intelligence of some kind. And they're huge in relation to the sun, okay?
I've heard, is the sun a portal? Because I've heard that
Yes, I'm going to show you that. Very good. You're going to see that in a minute. So besides the ships, we're also seeing these huge planetary objects show up around the sun, as you can see in the bottom right corner there. And I'm going to connect the dot to that in a minute. So these are different views, different cameras of the sun. They're in black and white. They do these different colors. And I'm just connecting that to the FAA. Now the FAA weather cams are on Earth. They're not in space. And we have one, they're all over the planet to watch the sun from sunrise to sunset. And we're seeing these objects show up in the middle of the day when the sun is at a certain angle and illuminates it. So does anyone know anything about light? Light can reflect, light can retract, light can obfuscate, meaning cover it all up, being blinded by the light, you can't see a thing, and light can illuminate. So when the sun rises in the morning, you don't see what's around the sun because the sun is too bright, which is why we're seeing the second sun before sunrise. And our sun has a binary twin, okay? So I'm calling it Nemesis, and it's a brown dwarf star that's been with it all along, and we don't see it because most of the time it's behind the sun. But every 2,000 to 3,600 years it comes around. So we're seeing that, and being that it doesn't radiate its own light anymore, when the sun hits it, it looks like a second sun, just like the sun hits Venus and it makes it bright, or Jupiter, etc. So we're seeing these ships that look very much like what the stone tablets depicted, okay? I mean, the ancients left this like notes to us. This is what you're going to see. And these come around cyclically, okay? And they're here. And so what I'm connecting today is that this is one reason why there's an uptick in UFO sightings, okay? Because this system is intersecting with our solar system. So they look very much like the Ahura Mazda. I'm going to just flip through because I want to get to these videos. And crop circles, no coincidence there. And I'm going to show you that video real quickly. Look at this. This has a hole in it. Crop circles are telling us something. FAA weather cam. ... Okay, so he's important. William Tompkins. Okay, he's passed now. He passed on that solar eclipse, but he was in the control room when Apollo 11 landed on the moon, and that's what he saw on the screen, the live screen that only went to them. It was a private line, and he drew it because he had this photographic memory. And his whole story and everything is in my book. Edgar Mitchell, one of the biggest astronaut whistleblowers, did a lot for ufology. And then, of course, Gary McKinnon, who's still alive, accidentally hacked into Solar Warden, okay? And so this is all corroborated. And there's that ship again. So in my book, I have a whole chapter on what all the astronauts had to say. I'm just showcasing a few of them here. But, NASA astronauts are under NDAs, non-disclosure agreements. So they're not supposed to tell the public what they see. This is all for national security. But, some of them have become whistleblowers, and they've suffered for it. So, in this month where the veil is thin, I want to honor them because they're no longer with us. But if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have this information. Edgar Mitchell, Gordon Cooper, Al Warden. He's in my book. So this was taken out of the ISS outside the window, and the astronaut said, "Oh my goodness," he's watching it and he's going, "It looks just like the Millennium Falcon." So it stopped. See how the truth is stranger than fiction and how we use fiction to relate to things now? So I want to show you these, and this we're seeing, this was taken from Earth, from a telescope. That wheel is showing up not only around the moon, I'm going to show it to you around the sun in a minute. Yep, we're seeing two suns at certain areas of the Earth at certain times. This was the Chinese, the Chang 3, which happened during the pandemic. Did anybody see that? Went right over, right? But yep, they landed on the dark side of the moon during the beginning of January of 2020. And of course, they don't have the same rules that we do, so they released these photos of these spaceships on, almost like colonies on the moon. That's an ISS photograph. That bottom one is from a telescope on Earth, and that's the ISS. So we're also seeing structures on Mars and Antarctica. And there's a whole book here, Alien Bases on the Moon, which are corroborating a lot of these photos. And that was written in the 1990s. I'm going to get to the videos here. We are seeing every 28 days something eclipse the sun. And it's not Mercury, it's not Venus, it's not any of our planets. It's a planet from the Nemesis-Nibiru system that is intersecting in our solar system. The auroras are beautiful. They call them northern lights. They're coming further south now. They can no longer be called northern lights, but we're seeing them on the Colorado-Wyoming border. So I kind of connected this to the Death Star because doesn't it look like a Death Star? But hey, this is in the coronagraph space telescopes. What the heck is that? There it is again. Something with a big hole in it. This is all NASA down there. No lens flares. I don't know. Is it a planet or a spaceship? Well, here's a workshop question for you. Do you think that we're going to have a war between us, the humans, and the aliens at some point? Because it looks like that's what they're preparing for. And here we have the Sumerian stone tablets, basically depicting the binary system. They also left more information, more detail of the 7 planets around it. More spaceships around the sun. I want to get to the video because I'm running short of time. I'm going to go through enough. These are the eclipses that we're seeing all the time happen. This is the sun. This is not. This is nothing. This is something that's been sucked into the sun's orbit, and it goes around it every 28 days. And it's huge. There it is again. Okay, so I'm going to show you this video. And this was seen from the International Space Station during the month of May and June of 2021. And the space station is home to 14 Earth space agencies. So it's not all NASA. So one of the ESA astronauts from Spain, he got out his cell phone and he videographed it. And here it is. It's silent. I'll just let you look at it. So those little ships are scout ships that are going into it. They're not stars. It gets a little clearer in a minute. There it is right above the Earth. Okay, this one is much clearer. Okay, he gets it focused, and you'll see them coming and going in a minute. Those are all scout ships, by the way. And this was on, everybody's had it on their YouTube channel. You can find it. Okay, this is pretty clear. You see the lights changing on the right wing? The little ships are going in and out of it. That's as clear, I think he gets it. Look at that. And that thing on the bottom is a ship entering into it. See? Now it just disappears.
How big is that?
Oh, it's huge. It's gigantic. And I don't think it's ours. If anybody's wondering.
It's Italian.
It's Italian.
How do you know that those little ones are scout ships?
I'm just calling them that because, you know, like that would be the mothership and the little ones
Yeah,
are scout
that makes
ships that
sense,
come and
but
go
no,
inside.
no.
Because this is obviously the, and this structure was sitting in the same spot for 2 months,
Okay.
May and June. So whatever the scout ships were sent to do, they were coming and going, and you can see them coming and going. So, I mean, you know, thank God for this astronaut who decided, you know, whoa, this is just, I gotta share this. I gotta let people know this is happening, you know? And he's not under the NASA NDA. So we're grateful to him for this. I mean, we spend a lot of money that goes into our space tech. So why shouldn't we see what's going on up there? Okay, so I'm going to show you another video, and someone, you had said about the sun being a portal, and now you're going to see it, okay? So these are screenshots of 2 ships entering into the sun and leaving on the other side. There we go. Same 2 ships, entered one side, left the other.
Did they not burn up?
This was about 5 months ago.
No, I mean, how long did it take for the 2 ships to go through the sun?
Oh, you're seeing it in real time. This is the video that George raped Virginia, and he sent it to the 3rd phase of the Moon channel, and I'm crediting them here. That's where I got it from. So you're seeing it in real time. This is not sped up. Good question. It just loops. And, want to show you?
How come they don't turn? It's so hot.
Yes, well, they have technology we don't. So they're shielded. So look at that. You get to see it a few times. Okay, something big and spherical sucking off the sun and just glides off. So the sun is not only a portal, it's also a gas station.
Is that on the internet anywhere?
Yes, it's on my page. You can find it. Go to Who's Who in the Cosmic Zoo on Facebook. I post all of this on my Facebook page.
Oh,
So maybe as they're passing through, they go back to their home planet and they're there for a long time and come back?
Perhaps.
It's like a little pit stop and then they're back?
I
Perhaps.
think they get energy from that.
They're getting energy from the sun. That's what we're seeing with the cording. You see, it's cording. So the sun is like a big neutrino center, you know, and this is taken from SOHO, okay? This is NASA's technology. You know, they shut it down every now and then because they don't want us seeing what's going on, but you know, it's not a perfect system, so people, myself and other researchers are watching it daily, and you can go on and you can copy and screenshot, and this is what's going on. So I want to show you this real quick because we only have a few minutes left. So I connect the dots. Remember the wheel that you saw on the moon? Well, now you're going to see it on the sun. Ezekiel's wheel, I call it. Look at that. This was taken by one of the space SOHO telescopes focused on the sun.
Wow.
And that just went right through. And it's a big wheel. And is it a coincidence that it was written in the book of Ezekiel in the Old Testament? Described to a T? This is ancient, and they've come round. My conclusion here is that a lot of this is happening because of this Nemesis Nibiru system intersecting in our solar system. This is ancient, the ancients wrote about it, it's in the stone, it's written in stone, and they're back because it's the end of this precessional age. You know, the precessional age is 2,160 years, so we're almost at the end of it, which they call, you know, the age of Pisces, and we're going into the age of Aquarius, which is when everything changes. The next golden age on earth, or heaven on earth, and it's coming. But before that happens, this is a divine appointment, so to speak, with these beings who come back and harvest the earth, and there is probably going to be some kind of Star Wars over who controls what, because that's how it's always been. And that's what the drama's about. And no coincidence that this is written in very, great detail in the book of Ezekiel. And this, J.F. Blumreich went to go discredit von Daniken about it in the 1960s, and he's an aerospace engineer, and then he went in and looked at it and ended up writing his own book proving it. So, and these are artistic depictions of what these scriptures are telling us about the cherubim, the seraphim, and the Ophanim, which are also written in the books of Ezekiel. Okay, and if you remember the movie Contact, remember with Jodie Foster? Doesn't that remind you where they had the wheels within the wheels, and that's what the ship she was in? So it's an ancient form of technology. So I have this all evidenced in my book. I want to honor his memory here because he was my teacher and mentor, Zachariah Sitchin. And I invite you all to come to my table, and you can look at all of this in much more detail and pick up a book. I only have 9 left, but I'm taking orders to accommodate that. And all this is in my book. I'm sorry we're running out of time, so I'm just going to get through this and just show you. I have a book series, 5 books. It's kind of all laid out, and yeah. Signs in the heavens. Nibiru has been seen as the messianic star by the ancients. I'm just going to go through this and get to the end. you're welcome to come to my table to see the rest of these. Sorry I didn't have time to go over the space tech, but we've got a solar simulator up there, lots of mirrors, obfuscating all kinds of stuff. You're welcome to come back and look at it at my table. I'm here till 3:30. And these were all patented in the early 1960s, and they're up there. So, Tatooine prepared us for the second sun. They called it Naboo, which sounds very similar to Nibiru. And the Greeks called it Hercules, the Chinese called it the Red Dragon. This is the astronomy of how it's intersecting with us, all evidenced in my book. A whole controversy about Planet 9 demoting Pluto, and this is how the magnetosphere is being affected by these solar flares. And thank you so much for coming.